Good afternoon. Today is April 18, 2025. This is iPulse Live. I'm Erna DeLise.
And I'm Hunter Rossi. 2 people are dead after a shooting spree in Florida State University in Tallahassee. Officials say the fatalities include 2 men who were not students. They say at least 6 others were injured.
Officials say campus police shot and apprehended the suspect, Phoenix Eichner. They say he's a 20-year-old FSU student whose mother is a local sheriff deputy in that area. CNN's Amy Kiley has the latest.
He let off a shot kind of in our direction.
Witnesses recount terror and disbelief during a deadly shooting rampage at Florida State University yesterday.
A dangerous and life-threatening situation exists.
2 people are dead and several are wounded as a result of that violence. One student says she was walking across the green near the Student Union building when she saw a man standing near an orange Hummer. She says he fired a gun in her general direction and then pulled a smaller firearm out of the vehicle. She recalls he was scowling but calm and says he shot a woman wearing purple scrubs in the back.
That's when I realized there was no target and that it was anybody he could see, and I took off.
The witness says she heard repeated gunshots behind her as she ran to her apartment.
It still honestly hasn't really settled that those guns were real and people died.
Another student says he was in a nearby classroom and helped barricade this door. A priest says he helped people shelter in a nearby church building. He says he later went out to minister to any victims and saw a body.
I had the realization that, even if this isn't my kid, this is somebody's kid.
A local doctor says he took part in surgeries for the injured. He says he's an FSU graduate, and though he's seen his share of trauma,
a mass event like this that's, right outside at our own university really hits close to home.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
At Lynn University, students, many of whom have friends at FSU, are speaking out today. Swanson Gibson Jr. brings you their perspectives and concerns in the wake of this latest mass shooting.
It really hit close to home because I'm personally not from Florida. So if something were to happen at this school or somewhere else, how would I escape, you know what I mean?
When I first heard about it, I was genuinely concerned about the students. I have a few acquaintances there. I used to work with them in the camp over the summer. And they're all freshmen, so they're pretty much kids. So when I first heard about them, my first reaction was to text them and ask them if they were fine and they were okay or not.
If people are going through a hard time, they ease their pain by going at other people, which isn't good. You should just go ask for help instead of causing tragic events like this.
I do think mental health is one of the big main concerns that people do it, and they need to go see help and counseling before they go to these terrible measures, because that's not the way to do it. You need to get help and attention to your people and guidance.
Something that I like about Lynn is that they have the security guards and stuff, and they have the those gates and barricades. So I feel like that is something that creates a lot of safety for students, because at least there are barricades and you're not just being somewhere, you're not just running around and just not any random person can come on your campus and start shooting. And apart from that, I believe regular checks on students, making sure that the students are okay mentally, because of course there's some mental reason behind that. So making sure that the students are okay, having texting them and asking them if they're okay or not.
Reporter Delaney Smith talked today with Sandra Whitmer. She is the Assistant Director of Counseling Services at Lynn University.
She spoke about counseling resources, and while a motive for the mass shooting has not yet been determined, she also spoke about the mental health problems that in extreme cases can lead to violence.
Please talk to us. What are students typically going through after an event like this? Both students who were there at FSU and students here at Lynn who are looking at the events that happened.
I think at first it's pretty surreal, just this disbelief this is actually happening. And it's happening to me, and it's happening where I am. We hear about it, we read about it, but it's always a little bit removed. So when it's actually me that's in the situation, there's that sense of is this really happening? And then some kind of shock, just disbelief. There's that fight or flight mode gets in, so adrenaline just kind of floods our body, and we really just react immediately, initially. That's all we're doing, is just reacting, not even thinking.
And what mental health resources are available here at Lynn for students who are emotionally affected by this event?
That's a great question. We have counseling services available Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, depending on the day. And the services that we provide here, they're free. It's included in tuition. So there's no extra financial burden, and we can get students in pretty quickly. Sometimes we have walk-in crisis appointments available if a student, isn't expecting to have a strong emotional reaction, but then they just find themselves in a tough way. They can just walk in, and more often than not, we'll get to see them within the hour.
And how can students, teachers, parents, peers, communities help identify when someone doesn't seem like themselves? What are the signs?
I would say the biggest indicator that I could say, like sweeping across the board, is a change in demeanor. So if somebody's usually withdrawn and then you notice that they are in fact still withdrawn, not a concern. But if someone's usually outgoing and then all of a sudden their demeanor changes, that's what we look for.
And how important is it for counselors and faculty to have a relationship with their students regarding school violence?
I think connection is so important. It's so key, not just education situations, but just across the community. Having a connection with somebody so people don't feel disenfranchised, so people don't feel isolated and alone, so they know that if they do feel in a bad way, starting to have some thoughts they're not comfortable with or they think could be harmful or hurtful, they have someone that they can speak to.
We turn to other news now. This week marks 12 years since the Boston Marathon bombing that killed 3 people and injured hundreds more. 2 self-radicalized brothers became the subject of a manhunt. One was killed, the other sits on death row. Reporter Ellie Nickel brings us that story.
April 15th, 2013, a day for celebrating Boston marathoners, turned so savagely, so suddenly into a day of death, destruction, and nationwide shock. I talked to Everett Chapman. He was 9 years old at the time.
I was at my grandmother's place up on the coast of Maine, and we ended up watching the marathon, like we do every year, and we all saw it unfold on live television as it was happening.
Everett's dad had run the Boston Marathon 11 years in a row. He sat out that fateful day.
It definitely brought everyone together in a way. We had the whole Boston Strong thing going on, sports games were centered around that, jerseys for athletes.
I grew up in New England too. My dad, Jeff Nickel, ran the marathon that day.
So it was probably about an hour maybe after the explosion happened, but I was, on the interstate and I saw just a big line of police cars flying down the interstate going the other way.
His phone, like so many, began ringing nonstop.
I started getting texts and calls on my phone from people that knew I had been in Boston running the race, asking me if I was okay and all of that.
A year later, my dad was back at the marathon, Boston Strong on display for all the world to see.
I was glad that I ran it again the next year, because if you start living your life just scared of every bad thing that can happen, that's no way to live. But also at the same time realizing every moment we have is a gift.
In the face of terror, Boston stood tall to remind the world what it truly means to be Boston Strong. I'm Ellie Nickel reporting for iPulse News.
Environmentalists today are alarmed by a Trump administration plan to eliminate habitat protections for endangered and threatened species. In Florida, wildlife experts say that the Florida panther, manatee, and spotted owl are protected right now because of current rules that prohibit habitat destruction.
But its critics say under the new proposal, their habitat might disappear if a developer could prove they did not intend to harm an endangered species. I talked today with Ron Miguel, a wildlife expert and the Miami Zoo ambassador.
It has huge implications. What this amendment wants to do to the Endangered Species Act is basically say, look, the only way you can really be charged with harming an animal is by physically harming the animal itself. In other words, injuring the animal, handling the animal, scaring the animal, doing the animal. It eliminates the protections that the habitat that the animal needs to survive in. In other words, it's saying, to put an analogy, you can say, okay, I'm not going to hurt you, Ron. I'm not going to hurt you at all. But I am now going to take away the publics, the roads that you have to go to certain areas, your ability to survive. This is a very short-sighted approach. And basically what it seems to be doing, to me, my personal opinion, is that it just seems to be opening the ability for people to go in and start exploiting habitat. cutting down forests, using it for lumber, using it for whatever natural resources at the expense of the endangered species that need that habitat to survive. So it's very short-sighted and incredibly dangerous, especially for Florida, where we have so many fragile environments. You know, whether it be a rock pineland, whether it be a mangrove area, all these different areas that provide homes, provide sanctuaries for so many different animals, provide food for these animals. If you can go in there and destroy the area where they live, how are they supposed to survive? Even though you're not physically harming the animal, you're not shooting the animal, you're not hurting the animal directly, you are indirectly pretty much cutting off its life.
And any final thoughts?
You know, my main final thought is this, that we need to start being very careful about eliminating the protections that we have for not just animals, but for the habitats they live in. At the end of the day, people need to realize this. We are connected to all of this wildlife. We are connected to all of these habitats.
Before this latest news broke, we recently had a chance to speak to Loggerhead Marine Life Center. There is a few species of turtles at their facility that are on the endangered list. Allison Wallace has the story.
Loggerhead Marine Life Center is one of Florida's most visited nonprofit scientific destinations focused on sea turtle conservation. Let's go check out how they're saving the sea turtle population. I spoke with the workers at Loggerhead Marine Life Center to get their insights about sea turtle nesting seasons, the safety of sea turtles, and why it's so important.
We've had anywhere from about 50 to 40 patients at a time. We're releasing turtles every single week, so we're very busy. We get a lot of sea turtles that come through our hospital, and most of them are contributing to anthropogenic injuries. They're the reason that they're here. And some of those injuries actually come from boat strikes, and that's because sea turtles are kind of just like us in the fact that they breathe air, and they also like to use the surface of the water for a variety of different reasons. And so what that does is it makes them more susceptible to boat strike injuries, and we realize that sometimes these happen just because of a lack of education. A lot of boaters are out in our area and aren't even aware that sea turtles are something that they should be looking out for when they're out on the water.
One of the common phrases that we say here is the sea turtle tells us the health of the ocean, and the ocean tells us about planetary health. And oftentimes I think people are very disconnected from the environment. They don't realize that environmental health is directly linked to human health. So if you've got a bunch of sick turtles in the environment, which we do see, that's not great for human health either. They're eating a lot of the same things that we are, and so if they're ingesting plastics because of the food that they're eating, it's likely affecting us as well. So individuals may not have that same connection to the ocean or to organisms in the ocean that we have, but they should care about the health of themselves, and so we all live in one big space and one big ecosystem. Sea turtle nesting season is off to a good start. It's a little hard to say how the season's going to go since we're only in April and our loggerheads only just started nesting. I will say that sea turtle nesting numbers fluctuate very heavily year to year. We have 3 species of sea turtles that commonly nest here in the state of Florida. The leatherback, which starts the earliest, they're the largest of the 3 species and the most rare of the nesting.
Loggerhead sea and green sea turtles are a few of the endangered species that are in this Marine Life Center. The Trump administration plans to eliminate habitat protections that could possibly affect these sea turtles. I'm Allison Wallace reporting for iPulse News.
Today, a symposium of some of the best and brightest students at Lynn University. Students presented their work across a wide range of disciplines, from aviation safety to employment in the world of AI, healthcare, and much more. The 2025 Student Research Symposium is a sneak peek at some of the thought leaders tomorrow's doing great work.
This is the Lynn Student Symposium, where students all across campus are presenting their research that they've done with their respective professors. I believe every major or every college is represented here today. And what you see behind me is our poster session.
My research is focusing on psychological predictors in student drinking behaviors, really understanding why students drink.
And now we move to the weather. Here is Noah, the weekly forecast. Noah.
Hello, and thank you very much for the introduction. We have a little bit of snow out here at the West, which is pretty unusual for this time of year, but pretty cool if you're into that. We had a tornado emergency, unfortunately, up here in Iowa. This was actually really late last night. This is in the 10, 11 o'clock area. So it was nocturnal, which means it was at nighttime. So a really dangerous situation. Hopefully everything is doing all right down over there. As we can see here currently, we don't have anything going on in Florida. Just a few specks of rain off into the ocean. We have a little bit up in North Florida, but they might not even be feeling it because it's so slight. As you'll see on the 7-day forecast, it is consistently going to be in the low to mid 80s. The highest we're going to get this week is 84. That'll be on Wednesday. At the end of the week on Thursday, it is going to be cloudy at 83. Currently right now, 80, 71 at nighttime. It is going to be a little bit windy tomorrow, so look out for that. But again, the temperatures are going to be relatively the same. But as we go on throughout the week, the clouds are going to begin to pick up, but there is not going to be any rain because we do have a high pressure that is looming over the Atlantic Ocean, and that is affecting a little bit of South Florida. Thank you very much. Back to you guys.
Jen Leary, entrepreneur and CEO of Clifton Larson Allen, has 25 years of experience in the accounting finance profession. This past Wednesday, she visited Lynn University. She shared with students insights about the accounting business and her role as a woman CEO. Lillian Carrion has the story.
Jen Leary is a CEO that has established a financial services company to encourage women getting ahead in the accounting business in the U.S. and other countries around the world. Around 70 students attended the conference, which took place at IBC, where students were educated about how to be successful in the financial world. Jen agrees that the importance of creative thinking is one of the main skills to conquer the job market.
Write down goals. So when you think financially independent, what does that mean for you? Is there a number you have in mind? Is there something that you want to accomplish? Make sure you write that down and then talk about it with people who have been there, done that, and then create your plan. What is it that you want to accomplish in your first year, in your 5 years, and then maybe longer term dream? It's hard to think too far in advance because it just seems a little bit too much of an ambiguity, but think about what you want to do in the short term and the long term, and then making incremental progress. I'll tell you one thing. When I graduated from college, student loans, no money, first-time job, my dad said, put $50 away in an automatic asset builder in a mutual fund. That's it, just $50. And I said, I can't afford that. He said, just trust me. And it's the power of long-term investing. It's the time in the market, not timing the market.
What does it feel to be a CEO and a woman when sometimes it's hard to say, but in a male-dominated industry in the world sometimes? How does it feel to be, there as a woman?
I will tell you that it is fantastic. I love the role. I've always loved the role. And I've always surrounded myself with great people and that have supported me. So if I ever felt my confidence waning, all I had to do was look to a small circle of really trusted people to make sure that I understood that this role was mine. I earned the role, and I'm going to continue to pour into it so that the next generation has as many, if not more, opportunities moving forward. And I think I'm so excited for you right now because I think about the world that you're about to get into, so much different and better than what it was just 10, 20 years ago. Like, you'll rock it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, I'm very old school even though I'm young, but I love that. I think I have a last question for you, and this is like an advice that you would give to any student who wants to start their own business or like entrepreneurs or something like that. What would you say to them? What's like the key factors to have that success when you go out in the world, because it can be a little bit tricky or scary?
Yes. Well, I think first of all, think about what it is that you want to create in your business. Right? A lot of people have ideas, but to take an idea and create a sustainable business are two completely different things, right? So to have a great idea and then say, do I have a market for it? Do I have a team that can pull it off? Do I have the capital to fund it? Those are really important questions. Socialize your idea and then make some incremental progress. Make sure that you understand accounting. A lot of people can kind of sell themselves into bankruptcy in many ways. And so if you understand accounting, you have a good accountant, and then just continue to drive toward that dream.
I also spoke to some students in the audience to get their thoughts on the conference and their future aspirations.
Isabella, is there anything in particular that you loved about like this CEO coming here to Lynn University and speaking about business?
No, that was an amazing experience. She talked about so many things, and it's really nice to see how she's a business leader, thinking about all the different departments, all the different strategies. So going the extra mile, instead of just doing her job, she is literally thinking about everything. So having that perspective and having that early on, being able to experience that and have that idea, it's a good sense of direction and to where I want to do in my life as well.
My name is Lilian Carreon, reporting for iPulse News.
Whether you're into superheroes, sci-fi, or vintage collectibles, one South Florida comic shop is proving what's old is new. Tate's Comics just celebrated 30 years in business with a massive sale that drew fans from all over. Reporter Guillermo De Domenico was there.
Marvel, Star Wars, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones. No matter what your interest is, you can find it at Tate's Comics. They recently opened their comic book vault for a 36th anniversary sale. Dozens of excited comic book customers scrambled to fill their boxes with all they could get.
It's a little chaotic. I've been coming to the Tate tents for the past 3 years, so I'm used to this madness, but it's definitely a lot.
What got them so excited? Comics that originally sold for $7, now available for $1 each. Toys selling at superhero discounts, $8. Jesse Malero makes props for a living. He's so excited he came to buy one of his own creations.
I found the Harley hammer. The irony of this is I made this originally about 10 years ago, and I sold it, and here I am buying it back.
Happy customers filled their arms and imaginations with every conceivable comic world icon.
Superman, All-Star Superman.
Big green guy.
Kaisen, I've really been invested in that lately.
Collection of superheroes with their own internal problems.
In our digital online world, this day is a time trip to a bygone era of hand-drawn heroes.
I enjoy the storytelling the comic books have. Even though a lot of people don't view them highly, I do. They are pretty much most of my childhood.
Even iPulse benefited from the sale by bringing a life-size Lego Batman costume to his new home at Lynn. Guilherme De Domenico reporting for iPulse.
As we close our broadcast today, we end where we began, with our hearts and prayers going out to the FSU family. And our thanks to the real-life superheroes, police and first responders who risked their own safety as they rushed to protect a university campus.
FSU will hold a campus visual for the victims at 5 p.m. today.
Thank you all for tuning into today's broadcast. I'm Hunter Rossi.
And I'm Erna DeLise. Be sure to join us next Friday, and you can find us on YouTube at Lynn iPulse. Have a good day.